Good morning, everyone. I am meeting today with Sona Shalian, who is a ISU alum, and she's also a school social worker and currently our Director of Field Education. Sona will talk with us today about her experience working in the schools. So, Sona, if you can tell us a little bit about what some of those unique challenges are as a school social worker.
Um, well, they range anywhere from students that are having some emotional issues during the course of any given day. They may be having some issues with their peers throughout any given day. They may be having significant other issues. It just kind of depends. They will come in and start to talk to you about whatever's going on with them. If they are self referring, if they are coming from an administrator or a teacher that's referred them, typically that would have something to do with either behavioral issues that have gone on, and trying to look at how do you help them work through what's going on with them and what would be helpful as far as support in the classroom from their teacher or how they could support themselves, i.e., any kind of strategies they could use. Um, and then there are students that come to the school social worker that would be a student with an individual educational plan. So that means that they are receiving special ed services and have been identified that they need to have social work minutes. So it could be anywhere from 15, 30 minutes to 45 minutes in a given week. For those students, they have particular goals that they are required to work on. And as you work through the goals, you definitely would keep data on the progress that the student is making. Depending on the age of the student, I definitely encourage them to keep track of their own data as well. It just kind of gives them an investment into the process and helps them to see their progress, as well as because sometimes I think folks have a tendency to focus on nothing's getting better versus, yeah, you've made some progress. And so to have those concrete facts in front of them is really helpful for them throughout that process.
So, describe a typical day that you might have encountered as a school social worker? How's your day start?
Great question. No day is ever the same, which is fun. So you're never going to be bored. That's for sure. And so you may start off a day at. So when I was at the high school, the students start their day at 7:30, but it was not unheard of that I would have a student waiting for me to see me at 7:15 because their morning started off rough, or they just had a fight with somebody, an argument, so that they wanted to process through something, or they had a rough night, and it could be anything as the range of, I just had a rough night, I didn't sleep enough, or I had a rough night and I keep having bad feelings about myself. So the whole range of things, and many days, a good majority of the days, it would be kind of nonstop, where I'm either seeing back-to-back students that have self-referred, or I've sent passes down for students that I am meeting with on a weekly basis, because I prefer to keep a schedule. So if I'm going to meet with a student every Tuesday, I'm meeting with them every Tuesday. If I have the luxury that they have a study hall, then I would always send a pass for them during their study hall period. If they didn't have a study hall period, then I would move throughout their academic schedule so that I didn't pull them from the same class every week. So you have those days where you're meeting with students all day, and then there's some days where I had groups that I ran. I co-facilitated a social skills group with our speech and language pathologist. So that was a lot of fun, and that would be on a weekly basis. And for that particular group, we did meet the same time period every week. And then I had a group that I ran for the teen moms at the high school, and that group would cycle through the academic days so that I would not pull them from the same class every week.
What are some other ways that you worked with the teachers and administrators and other support staff in the school as a social worker?
So you do have a ton of collaboration with all of those folks that you just mentioned. So it could be in the format of kind of what I would call a traditional collaboration where you have a student that you're working with that again is receiving special ed services, so you're collaborating with the case manager or whoever the teachers are throughout their given day. You could be checking in on how they're doing, progress that's been made, or if there's a particular concern or a struggle that the student is having, helping to facilitate that conversation between the student and the teachers. And then sometimes it would be that the teachers would solicit a collaboration. They would send an email and say, I have a concern about this particular student, and we would meet to discuss what they've seen, what kind of steps they've already taken is always my first question. What have you tried so far? What's worked? What didn't work? Have you talked to the student individually? Have you reached out to the parent guardian? Things like that. And then kind of brainstorm with them as far as what would be some next steps. And then always asking them if they would like for me to step in and also meet with the student after and I only offer that after they've spoken to the student first. And then I'm also very candid about, so here's what I'm going to share with the student that you shared with me, so that the student feels like this is a supportive environment where I'm trying to help you, and I'm coming into the equation just to figure out how can we build in additional supports. At the high school level, I'm very much a proponent of what do you think would work for you, and soliciting that from the student, because the reality is that they do know what works for them, and they or at a minimum they know what doesn't work for them, and that's critical to figure out with them. So that also gives some investment on their part again on this is what I know about myself and this is what I think might be helpful. So it kind of empowers them too on, because often they'll say, well, I don't really know what's going to work. But when you tease out what doesn't work, then you kind of can figure out what does work with them. And so it's a neat process to go through with them.
And is there any particular story that you like to share with our students about maybe a unique population that you've encountered in the schools?
Yes. So I also was the homeless liaison for the high school. And so what that means is any family that self-identifies that they are in a homeless situation, and the definition of homelessness by the federal government does not mean that you don't have a place to sleep. It does mean there's certain criteria that they may meet. So it may be that you're in a homeless shelter. That's the one that, folks are very aware of. It may mean that they're staying in a hotel. It may mean that they are also in a doubled up situation. And so what that would mean is if, let's say, I as a parent guardian have lost my housing due to financial strife, and I now move in with my parents as a temporary remedy for that situation, then I meet the criteria for homelessness as far as the federal government is concerned, and that's the McKinney-Vento Act. So by virtue of their self-reporting of that, then I meet with them and would offer them up support services from the district. And what that may look like is, for example, you have to live in a particular area to be in the respective districts in our town. So if they are not living in our respective district, but they were previously, but because they're in a doubled up situation, the McKinney-Vento Act states that they have a right to continue to attend their home school. So then our district that they are returning to will facilitate their transportation. So whether that's a bus service or whether that is a taxi service or what have you, then those are one of the options. The other, probably the biggest support would be if you're having financial strife. That also typically means that you may have a tough time getting the basic needs that you would want for your academic day. So whether it's your writing utensils or your binders, things like that. At the high school you have to have particular PE clothes, so providing that for the student. Also helping the parent if the parent needs tokens or things like that when they're either getting to and from their job or if they're in the process of seeking out employment, things like that, and referring them to any type of support services that are in the community. And then every month you have to keep data on what's going on with those students for that academic year. So weekly check-ins that I would have with this student or parent, guardian, or both, and you just document that all within the data system that we utilize at the district. Because they still have to get their education, and the continuum and consistency of education is so critical, and so we want to make sure that we provide anything that they need. The other unique thing that I think sometimes people forget about in that type of situation is, so homecoming is coming, or any type of school activity event that the student is interested in attending, then I would reach out to that student and ask them if they're interested in attending, and let them know that we would provide a waiver for them so they don't have to pay for whatever those fees are. Because again, because you're in a difficult financial situation does not mean that you should not be able to participate in all those types of school activities and events that you should be able to participate in.
So I'm going to end by asking, what specific skills or competencies or values do you feel someone who wants to go into school social work needs to possess and have?
That's kind of a big question. So skills that they would have is that I think it's really important to have the ability to interface with all of the people that are an important part of that student's life. So the student, obviously, first and foremost, the parent guardian, all of the teachers, the administrators, and any other support personnel that are going to be within that building. And that may be a wide range of folks depending on what the student has going on. And knowing what is okay to share with all of the players and what is not okay to share. And always err on the side of caution of, when in doubt, consult with somebody that odds are you probably don't need to share unless it has to do with safety. That's when we obviously become blabbermouths. I would say it's also critical to remember, as any social worker, not unique to school social work, is that ability to focus on there are good things going on, and everybody has some sort of strength, and sometimes we are the voice of kind of helping that person see what strengths they do have. Kind of like what I talked about earlier with, if a student feels like they don't really know what does work for them or what doesn't work for them, is helping them navigate through ruling in and ruling out things that they've tried. And that helps the student, feel comfortable within themselves and feel confident that they actually know themselves better than they think they do, and helping them navigate through those types of questions and self-reflection is very critical. And you don't do it for them. You're not going to do it for them, but you are going to help guide them through the process by the questions that you ask and being as open-ended as you possibly can. Our tone that we use is so important. I mean, when we think about how we want to be spoken to, you treat anybody you're working with in that same fashion to help them feel welcome and supported, and like this is a genuine process that you're walking through with them. And then I would say it is always important to be able to document all that you have done. And I understand that, documentation for many of us is a difficult thing because we want to make sure we maintain confidentiality and not put too much information in there, but at least writing down the basic steps that you've taken and progress that you've made, and then follow-up questions, because it's also a friendly reminder to yourself. If you find yourself dealing with a number of students throughout any given day, you want to remember kind of what you gave as a to-do to that student for the following time that you're going to meet with them, so that they know, oh yeah, she really does remember what we're working on. And you can't really follow up with them if you don't remember. So just, working within what you have as comfortable as you can be with writing things down and keeping data on. These are the number of students that I've seen. This is the amount of time I spent. These are the types of categories, I would call them, that was a reason as to why I met with a student. And it's helpful for the student, it's helpful for me. It's also helpful for administrators if you're in a position where your district is looking at potentially not hiring a school social worker for a particular position that is needed in a building, then, or they're looking at maybe that's evidence that they use to advocate that they want more school social workers. So being able to provide the data of, on any given day, this is the number of students that I saw, I would break it down based on the students that received special ed services and the students that were general education students, so that then my administrators could discern, this is the way I'm utilizing my time, and they actually see concrete numbers, because everybody's driven by numbers, that I'm busy every day, all day. So it was, the times that I have shown that to people, it was very, very helpful for them to see, like, okay, yeah, we definitely need to advocate to keep folks like school social workers around. So, and especially given our current climate, it's critical to remember to do that type of data collection for yourself as well as for your district.
Well, thank you so much, Ms. Chalian, for sharing your experience in the schools. And everyone, I hope you all have a better sense of what school social workers do. You've heard from Ms. Chalian about her experiences, and you've also heard in my lecture about my experiences, so now you should have a clear understanding of what school social work is all about, or social work practice in schools, I should say. Okay, that's all for now. See you next time. Bye.
Thank you.